We have been moving the last couple of weeks, so I've not been consistent with the podcast, but we're back. We're set up. We are fully moved. There's a new setup behind me. I think it looks really good. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. But this is going to be more consistent moving forward. I appreciate you guys for sticking with me. Now, there's one topic I want to talk about today, and it is Roki Sasaki in my video yesterday about him needing some PR, some media training on how he responds. Now, he was asked about the WBC, and what he said at the time, or what was said through his interpreter, was that it was the team's decision to not let him play. I said that he needed media training because I felt like the better answer would have just been for him to say, yep, I felt like it was the best decision. The team agreed with me, whatever. Some combination where it doesn't feel like he is in opposition to the team. And there are many of you who commented fairly, he should be able to say what he wants. You want honesty from your athletes. You want them to be able to say exactly how they feel. If it is true that he wanted to play, but they said no, there's nothing wrong with him saying that. All those points are very fair and very valid. But the reason why I say that Roki could do with some media training is that in the world of the Dodgers, in the world of Major League Baseball, in the world of sports in America, these things get nitpicked like crazy. And there's already a little bit of a barrier between the fans and Roki because of the language barrier, at least on the state side. And although we would love to just embrace him fully with open arms, the reality was last year was disappointing. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't a good season, but it was disappointing based off of the expectations that we had for him. Did he end up becoming a very critical piece in the World Series run? Definitely. We don't win it without him, in my opinion. But it was still a little bit of a disappointment. And so going into this next season, his aspiration is to be a starter. Our expectation is for him to be a starter. This is a very loaded kind of starting rotation. Glasnow, Snell, Yamamoto, Otani, Sheehan, River Ryan, Gavin Stone, Roki Sasaki. There are a plethora of arms where if he cannot produce consistently early, I can see his role being changed. Now, is that preferable? Of course not. We want it to be a locked-in starter for the next 4 or 5 years, but the production is going to dictate that, and the Dodgers are not in a position, in my opinion, to just purely let him learn without having any of those results. Now, back to the topic at hand. The WBC, Team Japan, they are a wagon. Of course, Roki Sasaki is going to want to play with them. And of course, the Dodgers, like with all their players, technically, they don't want them to play, but they understand that it means a lot for people to be able to represent their country, playing the sport that they love. The Olympics is always a popular event, because people want to root for their country. Now, baseball is a sport that has been removed from the Olympics. I think the next one it is going to be in it, but up to this point, it's been gone for a while. And so the World Baseball Classic is the only way that they can put on their country's colors, their country's flag, go out there and represent themselves and their country to the world. So totally understand why you'd want to play in that. For Roki, the big thing for him right now is he needs to make sure that his professional career continues to go on an upward trajectory. I would say last year, again, it was a little bit of a stop and start, and a failure is way too strong, but it wasn't what we were expecting and what we wanted. And so going into 2026, I think we would all love to see, especially as Dodgers fans, him come in locked in, ready to go. And that can really only happen with him working on his craft in spring training in Arizona with our coaching staff and our pitching staff and all that stuff. So when he's asked about it, the reason why I say I felt like he needed media training is that there's a level of scrutiny with the Dodgers that just does not exist with other teams, with other leagues, in other countries. The way that American media covers a sport, it's so in your face, and every little thing is going to get dissected. So it's a little bit unfair for Roki because what he's saying is going to get translated. So there's already a layer there, but also phrases in Japanese or in other languages could sound a little bit different or hit a little bit different when translated into English. And so maybe he didn't mean to put it in a way as it being an opposition between him and the Dodgers, but ultimately that is what it feels like to me when he said it was a team's decision to not let him pitch in the WBC. And a way I think it would have been better, again, is to just say it was a group decision. It was something that I have felt like I wanted to work on this offseason to make sure that I'm ready to go as a starter, because I think there's a lot of instances in life where full, straight transparency is not always the best. I think you can ask a lot of parents when they talk to their kids about different topics. I'm not saying to lie to them. I'm not advocating for lying, but I think the way you present something always matters. So for people to say that he should just be fully honest about whatever and say however he wants, I think that's a little bit disingenuous because we know that there are instances in which it is pragmatic, it is wise to not just be fully honest, quote unquote, about how you're feeling, because people are going to interpret it in a particular way. Now, I have heard many, many times throughout the years that the interpreters for the Dodgers that work with Shohei, that work with Yamamoto, that work with Roki may not be the best at translating what they are saying. I don't speak Japanese, so I can't speak to that. I think Will Ireton does a great job overall. I've met him; he seems pretty cool. But there's always going to be some barrier, some gap, and I think it is incumbent upon Roki, the translators, and the team to always make sure that it is presented in a way where it feels unified. And I think that was my biggest nitpick about it. It felt like Roki, maybe naively, maybe again too honestly, was sharing something that he felt like was the team telling him not to do something, something that he wanted to do very badly, which again, we talked about it. The reasons why he'd want to are very clear, are very obvious. But given the circumstances of where the Dodgers are at, what they're trying to go for this season, probably wouldn't have been the best decision for him to try to do that. So I think overall, this is a learning experience. I think as Roki becomes more accustomed to America, to the way that media is here, if anything, he might become more guarded, and that would be a little bit unfortunate. But I do think that is preferable to him getting backlash for things that I feel like for him maybe what feels like a genuine thought and a genuine opinion that isn't intended to be taken as inflammatory in any way is going to get caught up in that cycle that happens a lot, in my opinion, in the United States. So that's my opinion on that. I think at Dodgers Fest, there was a lot said. There was another comment from Kim Hezong around him viewing his season as lacking. I did see a comment on TikTok saying that he needed some media training. And I think the context there is a little bit different in that Kim Hezong is more acknowledging that he had an up and down season. And I think the lacking part of it is a lot more focused on his own performance and recognizing the faults there. I don't think there's an issue with that. Whereas again, with Roki, it puts into potentially an area of him and the team being at odds with each other. Whereas I think everyone can acknowledge that Kim Hezong could have been better last year, a little bit more consistent. Does he do that with more playing time? Maybe, and that's kind of a push and pull there. But overall, I think as the Dodgers continue to employ more and more players who don't have English as their first language, and by the way, they've been doing that for a long, long time, but as it becomes more of a focus for the media to be scrutinizing the Dodgers, I think for all their players, it is really important for them to make sure that they are really on top of it, that they don't leave room for potential miscommunication or things of that nature to crop up. So again, guys, I understand you'd rather have your athlete be honest. You'd rather have your athlete be open about how they're feeling and how they're thinking because it helps us feel more connected with them. My opinion on this is just simply that there's a time and place to not only be honest, but to frame it in a way in which all sides feel like they're being put in a positive light versus in any way putting it in opposition, which then creates more friction with the fans, with the team, and could create more of a negative energy. So these are all things that come up as we're just starving for baseball. Baseball season comes back very soon. Spring training starts up at the end of this month. The Dodgers, I think, pitchers and catchers report on 13th. So very, very soon. And I'm definitely going to try to make my way out there to Arizona for some spring training games. So I can't wait for that. But again, we're going to be more consistent with these videos. I'm locked in. I'm here. I can't wait for the season. 2026 is going to be a blast. Let's go Dodgers.